Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Educator Yarns. I am here with Aaron Johnston, and he is one of the winners of our Educator Awards. So congratulations, Aaron. He's here.
Thanks, Jess.
Before I introduce him and go into our questions, I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are both gathered on today. We're both on the New South Wales Central Coast on Darkinjung Country, and pay my respects to elders both past and present, as well as acknowledging any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander listeners that might be tuning in. So for those of you who don't know who Aaron is, he's a primary school teacher at a K-6 school on the Central Coast. He currently works in an instructional leadership role where he supports teachers to embed evidence-informed practice into classrooms to improve learning outcomes for students. Aaron also leads the Aboriginal education team at his school, working in strong partnership with the school's AEO and local AECG. He's a passionate ally advocating for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives, histories and cultures to be authentic, embedded in all aspects of his school and community. Aaron also co-hosts the Teacher Takeaway podcast and shares his passion for Aboriginal education with others through his social media platform, Mr. J's Learning Space, on Instagram, Facebook and TikTok, which is how I first actually found you, Aaron. And now we've been on each other's podcasts, right?
Yeah.
So it was through the Share the Mic initiative, and I was just telling Aaron before, he didn't realise that actually several people nominated him for the Educator of the Year award, and he took Ally of the Year award as the award that he ended up winning. And I feel that it definitely speaks to the work that Aaron does, and I'm going to read out his nomination just so he fully appreciates that there were 4 of them. So maybe I should send you all 4, because multiple people were very supportive of Aaron and wanting to acknowledge the impact that he's had. So his nomination reads that Aaron is an assistant principal, curriculum and instruction, and Aboriginal education leader at a K-6 school, as well as the author creator of the teacher Instagram and Facebook account, Mr. J's Learning Space. Aaron is an exceptional ally in person as well as online. In the online space, Aaron has shown clear and consistent commitment to First Nation education since 2019, when we first met. And that's when we first met too, Aaron. It was through the Share the Mic to amplify First Nations voices in 2020, and it was right in the middle of COVID. It was so important. You collaborated with Wingara Education for their annual NAIDOC Challenge since 2022 and is a masterclass presenter for the Koori Curriculum. He is a co-host of the Teacher Takeaway podcast, which regularly interviews First Nation educators and leaders. He shares authentic First Nations educational resources to support other teachers and advocates for First Nations issues, movements and initiatives. Aaron is respectful, understanding and supportive of myself and other First Nations educators online. He forms positive and reciprocal relationships with First Nations educators and always respectfully seeks advice and guidance to inform his decision-making. At his school, Aaron leads and champions First Nations education, encourages all staff to be active and involved. Aaron helps lead the school's reconciliation action plan. He had a strong role in revitalising the school yarn ups with First Nations families by seeking their feedback and acting on their advice to move the yarn ups off-site to a location more culturally appropriate, in addition to connecting regularly with First Nations families. It just sounds so cool what you're doing, Aaron, and I can only sort of testify to that, what I've seen online. And you are very, very supportive of Aboriginal businesses and communities and consultants and people that are out there, whether it's by amplifying their voices or giving reviews and talking about how to use, giving those testimonials and case studies. But that's just one of the many ways that educators can be showing up and starting to develop those relationships with people in their community, by wearing their values and influencing those who are within their sphere of influence, in whatever platform and space that is. But I just wanted to ask you, to get things rolling, can you share what inspired your journey into First Nations education and how it has shaped your role as assistant principal and an Aboriginal educational leader at the school that you're at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing for me was really a wake-up call around that 2019, 2020 stage of just really realizing how ignorant I had been. And maybe it was a fear of, not wanting to do the wrong thing, or maybe, it was just completely growing up in, white society and just not being exposed to First Nations issues or histories or cultures. It wasn't something I really learned about at school. And then when, we had the whole Black Lives Matter movement, as someone who, really cares a lot about social justice, it kind of opened my eyes to, some issues that I was unaware of and confronted me as an educator. Like, what am I doing about these things? Because I have an awesome opportunity to change the story through, educating the next generation. But in order to do that, I sort of have to go on my own learning journey. And that was part of, the passion that has grown for Aboriginal education and supporting, First Nations campaigns and causes, and, instilling the importance of First Nations culture into the next generation has sort of come out of my own sort of wake up and journey of, going, I need to do better because I've been ignorant for far too long. And I think also around that time, I had a student in my class who had just sort of realized that they, had Aboriginal connections in their family, and their family sort of reached out and they were like, we're so disconnected, we don't know what to do. Can you help us? And I was a bit like, I don't know what to do. But here again is this opportunity to help this person, this family to reconnect with their culture. And in my school, we didn't have, an Aboriginal education officer or anything like that. But I wanted to help this student, really discover what it meant to identify as an Aboriginal person and that family as well. And so I went on that journey of, connecting with people like yourself and others online, and just, going on my own journey of, learning about, the true history of our nation and the culture that's been here for, tens of thousands of years, and how we can continue to champion that. That's sort of, been the story so far. And, I just continue to go on that journey and continue to unlearn and relearn and hopefully do better. And make sure that those, stories like mine, where students grew up not knowing about Aboriginal culture, it's not repeated.
Yeah, that's right. It's like stopping that cycle from repeating. That's what I say. Like, I don't want to have a group of children, adults, educators sitting in front of me in 30 years' time saying it wasn't taught to us during our schooling, because that's what educators are telling me now. I mean, it's really interesting what you say, because I think so often we have educators that are looking to their Aboriginal families for strategies and ideas of what to do. But often the family that you described that you had, or the child that you had in your classroom, that's also very normal, is that we have children that are displaced, and whether it's because they are in out-of-home care and they have carers who are non-Indigenous, or we have relationships that break down and potentially the parent that's no longer there is the Aboriginal side of the family potentially. And so, whoever's left doesn't have that connection, doesn't have that knowledge. Sometimes it's, due to displacement and that historical stuff where people, were forcibly removed from their families as part of the stolen generation. And a lot of that information has been lost. So regardless of why, there's been a loss of information, wanting to support the identity of the children, to be culturally proud and have that sense of belonging and identity is really important. And it's a big driving factor for me, as well as that our kids feel that sense of belonging, and don't feel, like a sense of shame, I suppose, that they don't know enough. They're not connected. So on your online presence, so Mr. J's learning space, what are some ways that you support First Nations education on that platform?
So obviously, like you've talked about before, sharing, amplifying voices, getting behind and supporting, First Nations businesses and campaigns, has been probably where the journey started. And, trying to connect people with other people like yourself in that space where they can grow in their own knowledge and understanding. And then from there, it's sort of, looks a bit like sharing practical ideas for teachers. My page and my platform has always sort of been at the core. That's what it's about, for people to get inspiration and ideas and look at things and go, I could give that a try, to try and bridge that gap for people where they think things are too hard, or they don't want to, make a mistake or get it wrong. So trying to make, give them practical ideas and strategies of things that they could do in their classroom that don't take a lot of work. I know for me, one thing I really tried to commit to, when I was in the classroom having my own class teaching full time was I started my journey with just want to do something, one thing a week, that's authentic. And I built it from there. And I think trying to just encourage teachers to think like that, we don't have to, do these big massive things, but it's little things like thinking about your book choice. So sharing, new books and simple books and that they can do and have a discussion about, or, great activities that they can do at the start of the year, like, an acknowledgement of country and, creating those together. So just trying to give teachers, I guess, practical strategies of things that they could do. And with all of those things, I don't just put them out there on my own. I'm asking questions and I'm getting, feedback from First Nations educators and going, is this right? What do you think about this? How can I do this in a better way before I put that out there? So it's not me coming up with my own ideas, but it's come from my own learning and my own, growth, so that hopefully I can share that and help other people on that journey. Because I'm sure there's plenty of other educators out there that have a similar story or feel the way that I felt when I went on this journey myself.
I think a consultation is key, and also those relationships that you've built, like you've sustained. There's a lot of reciprocity there. So, like if you reach out and you ask for that, it's like I kind of feel we love to respond because you've also shown that reciprocity where you're promoting what we do. You're talking about the benefits of Aboriginal education and resources to use, and you're giving educators those practical tips and advice. And so I feel like there's a lot of reciprocity in what it is that you're trying to give back. As well, I know Mrs. J, the teacher librarian. I got to meet her a couple of weeks ago. Do you have a favourite book or resource that is a go-to for you?
I have so many. And it's hard to pick one. It's a bit like pick your favorite kids. But I think that probably one that I do go to a lot, because I think there's just so much you can pull out of it for all years and ages, is Sorry Day by Coral Vass and Dub Leffler. That's one that I have consistently used for a really long time, because it's a great way to bridge some really difficult, historical stories that for some kids, and families, it can be really confronting, but I think it does it in a really sensitive way. And then as, you can delve deeper into, the stolen generation and reconciliation and that moment in history, Sorry Day, and what it's about. I think there's a lot that you can pull out of that story. And I also love their new book that they've done together, Walking Together, because it's a great follow on from that book. It's kind of like a nice, they're kind of like a nice pair, because it's all about where do we go to next. And I think too, having a personal connection with Dub makes it that little bit special too. Having taught his daughter is another thing that makes that book that little bit more special for me too.
Yeah. Yeah, they're two really great authors and illustrators. We've had them on our Koori Curriculum Book Summit before, and we love to invite them back all the time, because again, they're really giving of what they give back to education and to schools, and they're very passionate about wanting to make a change and a difference with the work that they do. In that is their advocacy. Good choices. Is there a person that has inspired you on your journey?
Oh, there's been several. I'd have to say, obviously, yourself, Jess, because you've always just
It's a
been
shame.
so giving and helpful and supportive when I have reached out, and really helped me, even just through what you share through your social media as well, and through your blog and things like that, and listening to your podcast. But the other person that I would have to give a special mention to is Jordan from the Yulung Effect. So Jordan has been someone that I've connected with and reached out to, on my journey of, discovering more about, First Nations education. And she has, I think too, again, she's been super practical in giving helpful resources and things. She's created some great resources that have helped me over the years, but she's someone that, if I have a question I can reach out to, she'll give me that honest feedback and support. And then obviously Leslie and the team at Wingaroo, for exactly the same reason, they've been so giving and helpful in supporting me to grow my own knowledge and understanding, and giving me feedback, and, when I don't get it right, keeping me accountable and helping me grow from that, I think has been the best thing, because I've never felt, I guess, like they're having a go at me, but it's all to help me grow. And I think that's the great thing about those relationships, is that, you're just so supportive and helping you know, non-Indigenous educators do better and, you know, get past some of those difficulties we have because there's gaps in our own knowledge and understanding. And I think, you know, that's the great thing about relationships is it's I feel like genuine friendship. It's not, you know, give and take thing, but we've built genuine connections and friendships, which I'm so thankful for because I probably never would have crossed paths with them outside of, you know, that digital space or digital world that is, you know, Instagram.
So that's good that came out of COVID, I think.
Hi everyone, I'm just jumping in quickly to remind you all that Beck and I have a series of upcoming events and workshops all throughout Queensland where we'll be yarning about the new ELF principles, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives and sustainability. We'll be in Toowoomba, Cairns, the Gold Coast, Brisbane, Mackay, Townsville, you name it, we'll be there. And we hope to see you all there. All right, take care, everyone. Enjoy the episode.
Can you just explain a little bit about Wingaroo Education and their platform, what they do for people that aren't aware of them and their services?
Yep. So Wingaroo have created a platform for they have lessons units for mainly primary school, in line with primary school curriculum here in New South Wales, and they're also branching out into other states where you can find pre-planned lessons that you can incorporate into your units of work that are developed by First Nations people and educators to support you in embedding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives into your classroom, as well as it comes with, you know, lessons, resources, units of work, a scope and sequence from K to 6 as well to help you if you're looking for a whole school kind of approach and how you can progress students' knowledge and skills over time. And then they also have, you know, an online portal that students can access as well to take part in, you know, activities and learning are going on their own sort of learning journey, as well as providing, you know, professional learning and support for teachers as well to grow in their own knowledge and understanding. So it's a really great platform, particularly in the primary school space, for teachers who are working in that space.
They do great. And I think it's, you can either use their resources as they are, or it's that starting point and you can adapt it. But the primary school curriculum is different to early childhood in the sense that, like, we're very much following topics of inquiry and children's interests, where you do have a set curriculum. So once you do learn it, you're revisiting that again and again, year after year, if you're teaching the same group, I suppose, like the same year. But I really think that what they do is great, and it's very much needed. No, we don't know what we don't know. Nobody's an encyclopedia of Aboriginal knowledge. So if you don't know who, you know, Aboriginal servicemen and women were, and you're not sure how to include that in Anzac Day, or, you know, when you're looking at that part of history, they've got that all there collated for you. And from what I've seen, I think that they've got some really great programs, and every primary school teacher that I talk to that has signed up for their platform thinks that it's fantastic. So I can't, I can't fault them.
It is. And I think coming from a school that didn't have an Aboriginal education officer, or someone that I could go to say, hey, can you help me with this program, or how can I embed perspectives better? It's a really great tool to help you do that in an authentic way because it's created by First Nations, you know, elders and educators.
You mentioned that you've revitalised the school's yarn ups with First Nations families. Can you tell us, well, firstly, can you tell us what a yarn up is? Because I'm sure that not everybody is aware of what that is. And, you know, what was it historically and what changes did you make to it?
Yeah. So a yarn up in our context and in a lot of schools' context is just a gathering where community members, kids, families, teachers can just get together. It's meant to be an informal catch up, a chance to connect, talk about how the kids are doing, but also create a space where, you know, families can connect and support one another to really build that community. So at my school that I'm at, we do them once a term. And they've been doing them once a term for a very long time. When I first came to the school, they sort of did them once a term and it was on school grounds, straight after school, but we weren't seeing, for the number of Aboriginal students that we had, a lot of families engaging. We would get maybe one or maybe two families come along. And when you have, you know, up to 70 Aboriginal kids, that's not a high engagement level. So I thought, well, let's just like talk to families. Let's ask them about, like, you know, what could we do to, you know, to make things better? Like, is there a reason why they're not coming? And I just sort of went about, asking, getting feedback, having conversations with different families within the school to get some ideas. And then our Aboriginal education team met and we sort of talked about some of these ideas. So we decided that we would start. Biggest first change we would do is by moving them off site, because we did realize that maybe being on school grounds can be uncomfortable for some families, or there can be some historical things there around school where being on school grounds isn't necessarily a pleasant experience. So we tried to just change the location. So we kept it close by, so down on the waterfront near school, and where the kids could play at the park, because sometimes families felt that was a hindrance for them too, like their kids would run off and they couldn't keep an eye on them, and then they're stressing because their kids want to be on the playground but they don't want to do that. So we had that park close by. We and then the other thing they a lot of our families talked about was they wanted the opportunity, I guess, to grow as well in their own cultural knowledge. So then we worked with our AEO to, every time we have a yarn up, to do a cultural activity that all of the families can engage in. So each term that's different. So one term it might be learning some dance together, listening to some yarns and some stories about our local area. And then we've, each term as well connected in local services that families can access in case they want more information, about health services that are available to them, and things like that. So we've tried to, make them, I guess, less formal, but I guess a more comfortable setting for families to come and engage in. And then one of the other things we did was we varied, I guess, the afternoons that they're on. So it used to always be on the one day, and that can be problematic for some families because they might always have dance after school or basketball or football or something. So we also have varied them each term to try and, I guess, just create space where we don't expect every family to come to every single one, but if we can see each family at least once in the year and have a really great connection with them and engage them in, checking in and seeing how their child's going and talking about their progress and celebrating that, then that's really our goal, is to see families just engage throughout the year. And we are at a point now where we can almost say that every single family has engaged in one of those throughout the year, which is something that we're really proud of, to say that we can do that. And now we're sort of moving into our next stage where we're sort of, again, mixing it up and looking at not just having it after school, but having some during the day at school. So we had like a lunchtime one, because for some families, they work in the evenings and the afternoons. So we saw a whole lot of families come to our lunchtime one during the day at school that we hadn't seen before. So it's just trying to get that feedback and keep it open and just create as many opportunities to connect as possible. And we're getting, really positive feedback and seeing the level of engagement increase. That's what it's all about, because that's really the purpose of those events.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well done. And with your families that are attending, have they had a part in the changes that you've made to how you're moving with your reconciliation action plan? Because you talked a little bit about, well, I don't know if it was you or Jordan who nominated you. She was one of the 4 people that nominated you, about how you've changed how you're using the reconciliation action plans at your service.
Yeah. So we have just started when we do our yarn up. So having like the chance to chat, but then giving families the opportunity to hang around, and we sort of pull apart different bits of our reconciliation action plan. So we might say, we're going to talk about, the presence of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture in our physical environment. If you'd like to be a part of that and share ideas and thoughts and give us feedback, that's what we're going to talk about. So we're starting to open up those opportunities, because we have a few families that want to be part of the working party and come to meetings all the time around our reconciliation action plan. But for some families, they can't necessarily make that commitment. So we're trying to capture feedback and give families the opportunity to have a voice when we do those yarn ups. So we kind of have been sort of, I guess, piggybacking them off the yarn up, where it's just that informal chance to chat and connect. When families, they can choose to go or they can choose to stay we could try and keep it really short, like, half an hour. We're just going to talk about this and get your thoughts and your feedback.
And have you got many educators throughout the school engaged with your reconciliation action plan?
Yeah, so we're growing. So we've got our Aboriginal education team who are part of the RAP, team that we work with, and that's sort of representative of all of the stage and age groups across our school. So that's got equal representation, I guess, of staff from kindergarten all the way up to our year 6 kids, but we have probably about a team of close to 15 in our team that work together. And it's funny, Aboriginal education at our school often, because we try not to spread people too thin, but there's often some fights about who gets to be on the team, because I want to be on it. No, I want to be on it. And so it's one of those teams. Everyone is welcome, but we don't want to spread people too thin as well. So I think that's one of the beautiful things about my school is the commitment from all of our teachers to authentically embed Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander education into what they do is amazing. It's incredible.
Can I ask, like, you've obviously achieved a lot and you're like highly reflective on, what has been and what you're doing now, and you're very connected, but have you had many setbacks in your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think probably the school I'm at now, it's been a great experience because it's so authentically authentically embedded in a lot of what we do. I guess my previous school, some of the setbacks or the difficulties I had were not having an Aboriginal education officer. So sometimes there was, I guess, not that buy-in from all staff. So sometimes with doing things, it was, there's that reluctance from staff because, you're trying to champion something, but for some stuff that's uncomfortable and it can be difficult to sort of get people to be brave enough to go on board. So, and then I think too, making mistakes, getting things wrong, doing the wrong thing, and then having to personally get through that because I'm sort of a person who I don't want to let people down. I want to do the right thing. And I think I've had to go on my own journey to go, it's okay. It's okay to make a mistake because I'm kind of that person that would make a mistake. Oh, I won't do that again. Do you know what I mean? And I think too, that's the nature of, stepping outside of your comfort zone and doing things that, challenge you. And also, I guess, having different people and different opinions, because I have, had people like yourself and Jordan and Leslie who are so supportive, but then people who, may have seen us do something and make a mistake, but have a very different, I guess, approach about, the way they feel about it, that you shouldn't be doing that. And so I guess I understand that everybody has their own thoughts and feelings, and that's okay. But I'm just personally going on that journey, trying to do the best that I can, because I figure it's better to do something, make a mistake and learn from it than do nothing at all. But I have had some, personal setbacks or challenges where, I've had to deal with people who have said to me, you just shouldn't be doing this. And having to wrestle with that myself is a challenge. And coming from that place of, like I said, not, I guess, feeling like I had to do a lot of the work myself to get the ball rolling, because it can be scary for people or it can be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think that's right. You are 100% better off doing something, making a mistake and learning from it, and you're connected. You're connected with your AUCG. You've got relationships with myself and Leslie and Jordan. You've got, schools, you've got the AEO that you have now at your school and so forth. So I think you are connected in those relationships, and you're not just going in uninformed. You have taken steps to consult and research and do those things. Even for myself, like, I make mistakes all the time, and I kind of feel, because of the platform that I have, when I make a mistake, there's a bigger consequence in that. But I also feel like it can be disheartening, and you can just sort of, it shakes you a little bit and think, oh, and I don't like upsetting people. So that's sometimes hard to get your head around. But people, we don't all think and feel the same way. So what one community or person feels is right, another family might disagree, and vice versa. So as an educator, you're trying to balance communities' needs, different families' needs, different educators' needs. We're trying to balance multiple stakeholders, I suppose, in the work that we're doing as well, to try and find what the best path is forward. And the reason I ask about like those setbacks is because I think sometimes people could look at your platform and say, like, oh wow, like, he's lucky, or he must be really well informed, or he's connected and he's got this and he's got that. It's like, you do, but you've put the work in to establish those relationships and to make those connections and so forth. So it's not without hard work, and it's not without setbacks. It's about the disposition that you have within you to keep going when you do face that.
And I think too, it's like it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Like I know one of the things that we've been working on too is, changing some things at our school, and we're dealing with, I guess, mindsets that have been, embedded in our school for a really long time, and it can be hard to shift those and change. And we could give up when we get feedback and people say, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, or why are you doing this? It's a bad decision. But we just have to keep going slowly, small steps, and not give up, because it would be easy to get that, negative feedback from community or people out there and go, you shouldn't be doing this, and go, oh, well, we don't want to upset anybody. But understanding that, we are undoing some things that are generational, and that takes a lot of time to change people's thoughts and beliefs, especially in older generations. And I find being in school communities where there are multi-generational families within the school, that can be really hard to make shifts and changes in this space.
Yeah, that's right. And I think schools were a place of a lot of trauma for a lot of Aboriginal people and families. So you're not wrong. Can I just ask, what advice would you give to educators looking to become better allies and advocate for First Nations issues and movements?
I would say build relationships, connect with especially people in your local community, your local ACG, local Aboriginal, and Torres Strait Islander groups that you have in your community, and establish relationships, not to get something out of it, just because you want to grow and you want to learn and you want to do better. I think, it can easily become transactional. And we don't want to just take, but we want to build authentic relationships. And so I think making those connections, asking questions, I often was that person who would, sneak into, Jordan's DMs, like, I've got a question for you. And she didn't know me, but she was, willing to give me advice. So not being afraid to just ask questions, and not because you want something out of it, but just because you want to grow in your own knowledge and understanding. I think it shows, like, you were saying before, Jess, the place that you're coming from and being authentic. And I think relationships are the biggest and most important thing. And just having, people around you that you can go to for advice and feedback and help you, as well as connecting, with the amazing people online, like, yourself, like I said, Jordan at the Yulang Effect, because there are great people out there, places like, Common Ground, Children's Ground, that are all doing great work, that provide, resources, great blogs and things that can help you grow. There is a wealth of resources out there, so much more now than I think back, 4 or 5 years ago. You just have to know where to look. And I think making those first steps of putting yourself out there, subscribing to some of those blogs, is a great first start. One of the first books I read was the Little Red, Black and Yellow book. That was like one of the very first books I bought, because I wanted to grow my own knowledge, and I just went to Big W and picked that up off the shelf and read it and highlighted it, and I got so much out of it. So it can be as simple as that, starting with, thinking about what you're reading.
Yeah. Great. I love it. And I think there's a lot in that, but I sort of feel like social media, we're all so connected now, and there are so many, I don't know, inspiring people to follow. Yourself is one of them. Like, for me, to follow teachers that are like walking the talk and showing you those practices, like putting the theory into practice. Like, we can create resources, we can put it out there, but it's not until you guys pick them up and actually start implementing them and say, well, this is how I've taken this, and this is how I've put it into my pedagogy and practice. That also moves the needle a bit to inspire other educators, and they're like, something clicks, when they can see those practical examples. And that's why I think it's such a important partnership. So you've mentioned a few people to follow. The Yulang Effect, which is Jordan, and Wingaroo Education, I think is important. And then there's also SNAKE, so the Secretariat of National Aboriginal Islander Childcare. Yep. They're great. So they released, I think, the latest version of the Family Matters report today. So if you're wanting to stay up to date with current affairs and issues, I would follow them. Then there's NITV and Koori Mail and so forth. They also share really good things about current affairs and issues that will have effect on your community and have effect on the families and children that are attending your service. So if you're on social media, and TikTok. I don't know, sometimes I go down TikTok rabbit holes, but there's a lot of information out there now that are at our fingertips. So, but thank you so much, Aaron, for coming on and being part of our podcast. And you're in the KC Quarterly, and you're a masterclass presenter. And I don't think we can ask a single thing more of you this year at Koori Curriculum. But I just wanted to say a big congratulations again. It's incredibly well deserved, and I think there were a community of educators when they saw you being nominated that were like, yes, we got so many messages of support for you, and we absolutely agreed that you were the most deserving to win Ally of the Year for the Koori Curriculum Educator Year of the War. I can't even say it, Aaron. Koori Curriculum Ally Educator, you know what it is, Educator of the Year Awards in 2024. I'll edit it. I'll make sure it sounds better. But congrats, Aaron. Well deserved.
Thank you, Jess. It's such a privilege to have that nomination, and I feel so thankful. But funny because it's not just about me. Like I'm just one little person in a big puzzle of people doing amazing things. But it is special to be recognized, and I also just want to give a shout out to the amazing team that I work with, because yes, my name was on the award, but a lot of those things don't happen without the incredible team of people that I work with every single day that make that stuff happen. So I feel like, funny about the award having my name on it, because it shouldn't just be me, because, I'm one part of a puzzle and wouldn't be doing it without the incredible people that I get to work with.
Yeah. And the fact that they're fighting over to be on the RAP working group, I think that speaks volumes. I think that it's great that there's such motivation to be engaged in Aboriginal pedagogy at your school. So congrats to you and to your team, and thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. To find out more information about the Koori Curriculum and how we can best support you in your early learning service, visit www.kooricurriculum.com.